The wind across the Chajnantor Plateau carries no moisture, only the cold, sharpened edge of the high altitude. At 5,000 meters above the churning tides of the Pacific, the atmosphere thins until it resembles a veil of frayed silk, barely sufficient to sustain the slow, measured breaths of those who dwell within the jagged shadows of the peaks. Here, the world is reduced to a monochromatic expanse of red dust and volcanic basalt, a landscape that mimics the desolation of Mars more closely than the verdant cradle of the lowlands. The silence of this high desert is absolute, a heavy, pressing weight that would be deafening were it not for the rhythmic, mechanical pulse of the cooling systems. Deep within the heart of the observatory, liquid nitrogen flows through veins of copper and steel, a silver lifeblood that keeps the sensitive infrared sensors at a temperature mere degrees above the absolute cessation of all motion. A massive lens, polished to a precision of a billionth of a meter, pivots with a grace that belies its multi-ton weight. It turns toward a patch of sky in the constellation of Sagittarius, where the stars cluster so densely they form a river of milk across the firmament. High above this terrestrial sentinel, beyond the reach of the last wisps of the blue envelope, a satellite designated Bravo Hotel 39 drifts in the silent embrace of the vacuum. Its gold leaf shielding glints in the unfiltered glare of a distant sun as its antennae capture a sequence of high-energy pulses. This is not the random static of the cosmic background radiation, nor the predictable ticking of a pulsar. It is a sequence of data, translated into a language of shadow and light, that begins to flow across the monitors of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. In the year 2025, the screens in the darkened control rooms of Maryland and California do not flicker with the usual steady state of a sleeping galaxy. Instead, they reveal a heartbeat. For decades, the central engine of the Milky Way was thought to be a dormant titan, a gravitational anchor that held the 100 billion stars of our home in a tight, swirling embrace but otherwise remained a silent, invisible ghost. But as the data from Bravo Hotel 39 is decoded, the realization settles into the marrow of the observers like a sudden winter chill. The darkness at the center of our world is beginning to breathe. The cadence of the light escaping the edge of the abyss has shifted, moving from a chaotic hiss to a rhythmic, deliberate surge. The scientists staring at the blue glowing monitors see the geometry of the void changing in real time. They recognize that the year 2025 is the moment the heartbeat of the galaxy changes, signaling an awakening that defies the established models of stellar evolution. The gas clouds surrounding the central singularity, once thought to be drifting in eternal, lazy orbits, are now being drawn into a frantic, spiraling descent. The energy being released is not a scream of agony, but a low-frequency thrum that vibrates through the very instruments designed to measure it. It is a signal that the sleeping giant at the core of our spiral city has finished its long slumber and is beginning to feed. This discovery marks the end of our era as mere observers. We have long believed ourselves to be safe in the outer spiral arms, protected by the sheer, yawning vastness of the 26,000 light-years that separate our yellow sun from the mouth of the beast. We were wrong. We are not merely watchers in the desert, nor are we safe on the shores of a static cosmic ocean. We are passengers on a vessel that has just entered a region of space where the maps are no longer written in the steady ink of predictable orbits and constant light. The new maps are being drawn in the language of shadow and gravity, where the terrain is defined by the warping of time and the crushing weight of the singularity. The realization ripples through the scientific community not as a wave of terror, but as a profound shift in perspective. The comfortable boundaries of our celestial neighborhood are dissolving. The data from Bravo Hotel 39 suggests that the gravitational influence of the center is far more dynamic and reaching than previously calculated. We are witnessing the grand machinery of the cosmos in motion, a process where the birth of stars and the consumption of worlds are part of the same terrifyingly beautiful cycle. As the monitors continue to scroll with the incoming telemetry, it becomes clear that we are entering a period of active participation. Our math is no longer a tool for distant categorization. It has become a survival guide for a species that has finally realized It lives in the shadow of a god. The heartbeat detected in the year 2025 is a reminder of our fragility and our audacity. We are a collection of atoms that has developed the ability to look back at the furnace that forged us. We have built towers in the desert and sent golden messengers into the void to listen to the whispers of a monster. Now that the monster has spoken, we find that the language it speaks is one we have always known in our dreams, the language of the beginning and the end. The silence of the Atacama is gone, replaced by the internal roar of a species that has finally glimpsed the true scale of its home. We are no longer looking at the stars. We are feeling the pull of the dark between them, and for the first time in human history, we understand that the darkness is alive. This realization of a living, breathing darkness did not emerge from a vacuum, nor did it begin with the sophisticated satellites of the present day. It began nearly a century ago, not with a lens pointed toward the heavens, but with a humble array of brass and wood anchored to the damp soil of New Jersey. In the early 1930s, a young radio engineer named Karl Jansky was tasked by Bell Laboratories to track down the source of a persistent, annoying static that plagued the newly established transatlantic radio telephone service. He was not a man looking for the secrets of the cosmos. He was a man looking for a glitch in a machine. To find it, he constructed a strange rotating antenna that resembled a skeletal merry-go-round mounted on the wheels of a discarded Model T Ford. This contraption, 30 meters in length, groaned as it circled its track, scanning the horizon for the crackle of distant thunderstorms and the hum of industrial interference. But as the days turned into months, Jansky encountered a sound that defied the terrestrial. Amidst the sharp pops of lightning and the rhythmic drone of local power lines, there was a third signal, a steady, unyielding hiss that seemed to rise from the very floor of the universe. It was not a violent sound, but a persistent one, a ghostly whisper that sat just above the threshold of silence. It did not sound like any human invention. It was the sound of steam escaping a cosmic valve, the rustle of dry leaves in a wind that had no origin on Earth. Jansky initially suspected the sun, but as he meticulously logged the arrival of the signal, he noticed a subtle, profound discrepancy. The hiss did not return every 24 hours as the sun did. Instead, it returned every 23 hours and 56 minutes. This was the exact length of a sidereal day, the time it takes for the Earth to rotate relative to the fixed stars. With this realization, the universe was no longer a silent portrait to be admired from afar. It was a shouting, vibrant entity that possessed a voice. The source of the hiss was not a local phenomenon, but a specific point in the sky, located within the dense star clouds of Sagittarius. Jansky had accidentally discovered that the center of our galaxy was emitting a continuous torrent of radio waves, a discovery that shattered the ancient monopoly of the visual telescope. For thousands of years, humanity had been blind to the vast majority of the light in the universe, seeing only the narrow sliver of the spectrum that our eyes could perceive. We were like people trying to understand a symphony by watching the movements of the conductor's hands without ever hearing a single note. Jansky's merry-go-round antenna was the first ear ever turned toward the heavens, and the sound it captured was the roar of a galactic engine. The scientific establishment of the time met this discovery with a mixture of curiosity and profound indifference. The Great Depression was tightening its grip on the world, and there was little room for the study of invisible whispers from the stars. Jansky was moved to other projects, his antenna eventually falling into disrepair, but the seed had been planted. The hiss of the stars remained a physical presence in the records of science, a ghost in the machine that could no longer be ignored. It challenged the visual understanding of the universe, suggesting that the darkness between the stars was not empty, but filled with hidden energies and unseen structures. This was the moment the veil of silence began to fray. In the years that followed, a lone amateur in Illinois named Grote Reber took up the mantle. In his own backyard, he built a massive parabolic dish of wood and sheet metal, 9 meters across, and began to map the radio sky. He was a pioneer of a new sense, a listener who understood that the light we see is merely the surface of a much deeper ocean. As he pointed his dish toward the center of the Milky Way, the hiss grew into a scream of data. He confirmed Jansky's findings and went further, proving that the heart of our galaxy was a place of immense activity, far beyond anything that could be explained by the light of ordinary stars. This transition from looking to listening was a fundamental shift in the human story. We began to realize that the cosmos was not a static museum, but a cacophony of hidden frequencies. The cosmic voice that Jansky first heard was the sound of electrons spiraling through magnetic fields at nearly the speed of light, the death rattles of exploded stars, and the frantic movement of gas near the central abyss. It was as if a great curtain had been pulled back, revealing that the silence we had lived in for millennia was an illusion. The universe was trying to speak, and we had finally developed the ears to hear it. The century of discovery that followed would be built upon this foundation of static and hiss. We learned that every object in the sky, every planet, every star, every distant nebula has its own unique frequency, its own part to play in the celestial chorus. But the loudest and most mysterious voice always came from the same place, the heart of the galaxy. This was the ghost in the galaxy, a presence that we could hear long before we could see it, and which we only recently began to understand as the architect of our entire home. The struggle of those early radio astronomers was a struggle against the limitations of our own biology, a journey to transcend the narrow window of our eyes and embrace the full, terrifying spectrum of reality. They taught us that to understand the darkness, we must first learn to listen to the light that it hides. This was the first step toward the year 2025, the moment when the whispers we first heard in a New Jersey field would finally be recognized as the heartbeat of a monster. The transition from the invisible realm of radio waves to the piercing gaze of infrared light required a new generation of sentinels perched on the highest peaks of the Earth. In the final decade of the 20th century, two teams of astronomers, led by Andrea Ghez in the northern hemisphere and Reinhard Genzel in the southern, began a vigil that would last for more than 30 years. They did not look for light itself, but for the movement of stars that seemed to be possessed by a frantic, inexplicable energy. Using the twin 10-meter mirrors of the Keck Observatory in Hawaii and the four massive eyes of the Very Large Telescope in the Chilean Andes, they pierced the thick, suffocating clouds of dust that obscure the galactic center from our view. They were looking for a ghost, and they found it by watching the living dance around its grave. The stars they tracked, known as the S stars, do not move with the stately, slow grace of our own sun. Instead, as they approach the very heart of the Milky Way, they are seized by a gravitational grip so powerful that they are whipped into velocities exceeding 5,000 kilometers per second. One star in particular, designated S2, became the primary witness to the unseen power. Ghez and Genzel watched as this massive blue sun was hauled through a tight, elliptical orbit, completing a full circuit in a mere 16 years. At its closest approach, S2 screams past the central point at a significant fraction of the speed of light, its path bent into a sharp, hairpin turn by an invisible hand. There is nothing at the apex of that turn, no star, no light, no matter that can be seen. There is only a point of absolute nothingness that possesses the mass of 4 million suns. This is Sagittarius A star, the monster at the center of our home. It is a supermassive black hole, a region where the density of matter has reached such a critical state that the very fabric of space-time has collapsed in upon itself. To prove its existence, Ghez and Genzel had to overcome the turbulent, shifting nature of the Earth's own atmosphere, which blurs the light of distant stars like the view from the bottom of a swimming pool. They pioneered the use of adaptive optics, using powerful lasers to create artificial stars in the upper atmosphere, allowing computers to deform the telescope mirrors hundreds of times per second to cancel out the atmospheric shimmer. This was a technological war waged against the limitations of our planet, a struggle to achieve a clarity that nature never intended for human eyes. The human cost of this discovery was measured in decades of cold nights and the slow, relentless passage of time. A career in astronomy is often a race against the short span of a human life, yet these pioneers chose to spend their best years tracking a single star through its 16-year cycle. They waited, year after year, for the data points to slowly form the curve of an orbit. They faced skepticism from a scientific community that demanded extraordinary proof for the existence of such a gravitational titan. They endured the isolation of the high-altitude observatories, the thin air that clouds the mind, and the technical failures that threaten to erase years of work. They grew grey in the service of a shadow, dedicating their existence to a point in space that would never offer them a single photon of direct light in return. Through their persistence, the galactic center was revealed not as a peaceful core, but as a violent anchor of light and a graveyard of matter. It is the anchor because its immense mass dictates the rotation of the entire galactic disk, a central weight that keeps the spiral arms from flying apart into the intergalactic void. It is a graveyard because anything that wanders too close, be it a wandering planet, a cloud of gas, or a stray star, is eventually torn asunder and consumed. The light we see from the center is the final scream of matter as it is shredded by tidal forces, heated to millions of degrees before it vanishes forever behind the event horizon. Gez and Genzel proved that our galaxy is built around a paradox, a source of immense stability that is also a source of absolute destruction. Their 30-year vigil transformed Sagittarius A star from a mathematical theory into a physical reality. We now know that we live in a galaxy that is fundamentally anchored by a void. This realization changed the very nature of our cosmic maps. We no longer see the Milky Way as a simple collection of stars, but as a complex tapestry woven around a central, dark heart. The stars we see in the night sky are not just drifting in a vacuum, they are caught in the wake of a monster that has been feeding since the dawn of time. As we look toward the year 2025, we realize that the dance Gez and Genzel first recorded is about to enter a new, more violent phase, as the anchor of our galaxy prepares to claim its next meal. The universe is not an empty stage, but a woven tapestry of 4 dimensions, 3 of space and 1 of time, intertwined into a single, seamless fabric known as space-time. This is the cosmic loom. Within this loom, matter and energy are not merely contents placed upon a surface. They are the very weights that give the fabric its shape. A star, such as our sun, sits within this weave like a heavy sphere of lead on a trampoline, creating a gentle depression that guides the planets in their orbits. This is the fundamental law of the void. Mass tells space how to curve, and space tells matter how to move. There is no invisible force reaching out across the vacuum. There is only the geometry of the weave itself. A planet moving in a circle is simply following the straightest possible path through a space that has been bent into a curve. As we move toward the center of the galaxy, the weights upon the loom become increasingly immense. Where an ordinary star creates a shallow dip, the 4 million solar masses of Sagittarius A star create a plunging, bottomless well. Here, the fabric of reality is stretched beyond its breaking point. The density of the central singularity is so profound that the curvature becomes infinite. In this region, the vacuum of space ceases to feel like an empty void and begins to behave like a tangible, heavy medium, a thick, viscous fluid that resists motion and distorts the passage of light. To move through this space is to swim through a sea of concentrated gravity, where every meter traveled requires an exponential increase in energy. The vacuum is no longer the absence of things. It is a structural presence that can be compressed, twisted, and torn. At a specific distance from this central point of infinite density lies the event horizon. It is a boundary defined not by matter, but by the cold certainty of mathematics. It is not a solid wall or a shimmering gate. A traveler crossing it would feel no physical change in their immediate surroundings. However, the geometry of the universe has undergone a radical and permanent transformation. Outside the horizon, space and time are distinct, and the future is a direction that allows for many possibilities. One can move toward the black hole or away from it. But once the threshold is crossed, the curvature of the loom is so extreme that the dimensions of space and time are swapped. The direction toward the singularity is no longer a path through space. It is the direction of the future. Just as a human being on Earth cannot stop the arrival of tomorrow, An object within the event horizon cannot stop its descent toward the center. The future itself has been twisted inward. Every attempt to fire an engine or accelerate away only serves to bring the traveler to the center faster, for in this warped geometry, all paths lead to the same singular point. The event horizon is the place where the light of the universe is outpaced by the curvature of the void, and where the story of any falling object reaches its final, unreadable chapter. At the very heart of this well lies the singularity, the place where the cosmic loom finally unravels. Here, the laws of physics as we understand them, the equations that govern the movement of atoms and the flow of light, shatter under the weight of infinite density. The fabric of space-time is not just bent, it is shredded. In this region, the concepts of before and after lose their meaning, and the distinction between here and there dissolves into a mathematical point of zero volume. We are left with a region of reality that is shielded from the rest of the universe by the event horizon, a hidden chamber where the rules of the game are rewritten in a language we have yet to decode. This warping of the loom has a profound effect on the light that attempts to navigate it. Photons, the messengers of information, are forced to follow the contours of the distorted fabric. Near the event horizon, light is bent into perfect circles, creating a region known as the photon sphere, where a beam of light could theoretically orbit the black hole and return to its point of origin. This is the ultimate expression of gravity's power. It has turned the swiftest thing in the universe into a prisoner of its own geometry. The vacuum, once thought to be the absence of everything, is revealed to be the most powerful structure in existence, a medium capable of crushing stars and swallowing time itself. As we look toward the events of 2025, we must view them through the lens of this cosmic loom. The shifting gas clouds and the sudden heartbeat detected by Bravo Hotel 39 are not just movements of matter, they are ripples in the fabric of space-time. The anchor of our galaxy is pulling on the threads of the loom with renewed vigor, and the resulting vibrations are being felt across the light years. We are beginning to see the flaws in our understanding, the places where our math becomes a prayer in the face of such overwhelming density. The void is no longer a distant abstraction. It is a physical presence that is beginning to exert its will on the neighborhood of our sun, reminding us that the ground we stand on is merely a thin layer of silk stretched over an infinite abyss. The rotation of the central singularity adds a layer of violent complexity to the already distorted fabric of the cosmic loom. Sagittarius A star is not a stationary pit but a spinning maw, whirling with a ferocity that drags the very essence of space and time along with it. This creates a region known as the ergosphere, a bulging, pumpkin-shaped volume of space that sits just outside the event horizon. Within this zone, the phenomenon of frame dragging takes hold. Space itself is no longer a static background but is caught in a whirlpool of such immense power that it is impossible to remain still, no matter how much energy is expended. To an observer watching from the safety of a distant star, any object entering the ergosphere is seized by the rotation of the black hole and whipped around the center at velocities that defy the conventional limits of motion. In this place, the fabric of reality is moving faster than the speed of light relative to the rest of the universe, forcing everything within its grasp to join the frantic, circular gallop of the void. This is a geometry of absolute coercion. In the ergosphere, the distinction between moving and being moved dissolves. A spacecraft attempting to hover would find the very coordinates of its position being swept away, as if the ship were an anchor dropped into a torrential river of liquid lead. This dragging of the inertial frame is one of the most extreme predictions of general relativity, a testament to the idea that gravity is not just a force that pulls, but a medium that can be twisted like a wet cloth. The kinetic energy within this region is so vast that it could theoretically be harvested, a process where a particle entering the ergosphere and splitting in two could result in one half falling into the abyss, while the other half escapes with more energy than the original whole possessed. It is a cosmic furnace where the fuel is the rotation of space itself. As one descends further toward the event horizon, the grace of the mathematical equations meets the horrific reality of tidal forces. This is the threshold of spaghettification. Because the strength of the gravitational field increases exponentially with every centimeter of descent, the pull on the part of an object closest to the black hole is vastly greater than the pull on the part furthest away. If a human being were to fall feet first into the maw of Sagittarius A star, the gravity acting upon their toes would be significantly stronger than the gravity acting upon their head. This difference, a mere 2 meters of distance, becomes a lethal gradient. The body is no longer treated as a single entity, but as a collection of parts subject to different destinies. The result is a visceral unraveling. The tidal forces begin to stretch the human form, pulling the legs away from the torso and the torso away from the shoulders. It is not a quick snap, but a relentless, agonizing elongation. The skeletal structure is the first to yield, the joints pulled apart as if on a medieval rack of infinite proportions. Then, the soft tissues, the muscles, and the organs are drawn out into long, thin ribbons. Eventually, even the chemical bonds that hold molecules together are overcome. The person is transformed into a single, kilometer-long strand of atoms, a stream of biological matter flowing toward the singularity like a thread of crimson silk being fed into a needle. This is the ultimate expression of the void's power. It does not just destroy, it deconstructs, reducing the complexity of life to a uniform line of subatomic particles. There is a profound and terrifying beauty in the mathematics that describe this process. The equations of general relativity are elegant, symmetrical, and possessed of a crystalline logic that has survived every experimental test for over a century. They represent the pinnacle of human reason, yet they describe a reality that is fundamentally hostile to the concept of permanence. We live in a universe where the most stable structures, the atoms that form our bodies, and the stars that light our way, can be unmade by the simple curvature of a vacuum. The stability we perceive in our daily lives is a local illusion, a brief moment of calm on a tiny island in a sea of gravitational upheaval. This realization forces a confrontation with the nature of existence. If the very geometry of the universe is capable of such violent transformations, what room is left for the idea of an enduring legacy? The stars that Gez and Genzel tracked for 30 years are not permanent fixtures of the heavens, they are merely in the middle of a very long fall. The year 2025 represents a sharpening of this awareness, as we witness the galactic center beginning to exert these tidal forces on the gas clouds of the inner core. We are seeing the cosmic loom not just weaving the fabric of the galaxy, but actively shredding the material it once held so tightly. In a universe governed by such extreme physics, the only constant is change, and the only certainty is the eventual descent of all things into the silent, spinning heart of the dark. The year 2025 arrives with a signature written in the infrared and the ultraviolet, a celestial announcement that the long period of galactic dormancy has reached its conclusion. The primary actors in this unfolding drama are the massive clouds of gas and dust known as the G objects, specifically a dense knot of matter designated G2. For years, astronomers have watched this cloud elongate as it approached the center, its leading edge being pulled forward while its trailing edge lagged behind, a victim of the tidal forces that define the inner sanctum of the Milky Way. In the months leading up to 2025, the data from Bravo Hotel 39 and the terrestrial arrays indicates that the cloud has finally reached the point of no return. It is no longer a cohesive entity. It has been shredded into a vast spiraling stream of plasma that is being funneled into the accretion disk of Sagittarius A star. As this matter falls, it does not descend in silence. It is caught in a high-speed collision with the existing debris that orbits the singularity. The friction of gas rubbing against gas at a significant fraction of the speed of light generates temperatures that exceed hundreds of millions of degrees. This is the birth of the flare. It begins as a flicker in the radio spectrum before erupting into a titanic burst of radiation that spans the entire electromagnetic range. From the hard X-rays to the most energetic gamma rays, the heart of the galaxy suddenly screams with a brilliance that has not been witnessed in the era of modern astronomy. This high-energy flare is so powerful that it acts as a cosmic flashbulb, illuminating the dark, cold nebulae that have sat in the shadows for thousands of years. The Great Molecular Ring, a vast reservoir of star-forming gas, is suddenly bathed in the harsh light of the central engine, revealing its complex, turbulent structure with a clarity that was previously impossible. The radiation environment of the inner galaxy undergoes a fundamental transformation. The surge of high-energy particles strips the outer layers of distant stars and ionizes the interstellar medium for hundreds of light-years in every direction. This is the pulse of a galactic metabolism, a sign that the central black hole is not just a passive weight, but an active participant in the life and death of the stars. The energy released in this single event in 2025 is equivalent to the total output of 1 billion suns over 1 million years. Yet it is concentrated into a period of mere weeks. It is a reminder that the heart of our home is capable of outbursts that can redefine the conditions for life and the formation of new worlds across the entire central bulge. Coincidentally, the year 2025 marks a rare and precious alignment. The orbital mechanics of the Earth and the rotation of the Milky Way bring our planet into a position where the intervening dust clouds are at their thinnest, and the path to the center is as clear as it will be for another century. This alignment allows the global network of terrestrial sensors, a planet-sized array of radio dishes, to focus their collective gaze on the event horizon with unprecedented resolution. They are not looking for the light of the black hole itself, but for its shadow. As the massive flare illuminates the accretion disk from behind, the silhouette of the singularity is cast against the glowing plasma like a dark iris within a burning eye. The data captured during this window provides the first real-time movie of a black hole feeding. We see the ripples in the light as the matter is consumed, the wobbling of the shadow that reveals the spin of the singularity, and the jets of energy being projected away from the poles. This is a turning point in our understanding of the universe. We are no longer looking at a static photograph of a distant object. We are witnessing the metabolic processes of a galactic titan. The shadow of Sagittarius A star becomes a laboratory where the most extreme predictions of physics are tested and confirmed. The year 2025 will be remembered as the moment the darkness finally revealed its face, not as a void of nothingness, but as a dynamic, churning engine that drives the evolution of everything we know. As the flare eventually subsides, it leaves behind a changed galaxy. The radiation has carved new paths through the gas clouds, and the sudden intake of matter has slightly altered the mass and spin of the central black hole. The sensors on Bravo Hotel 39 continue to record the afterglow, a lingering warmth that tells the story of the meal that was just consumed. We have learned that the center of the Milky Way is not a sleeping giant, but a hunter that periodically awakens to assert its dominance over the stars. The maps we drew in the previous century are now obsolete, replaced by a new understanding of a galaxy that is as much a living system as the biological organisms that inhabit its outer reaches. The heartbeat of 2025 was the signal that the hunt has begun. The analysis of the telemetry from Bravo Hotel 39 reveals a deeper, more unsettling truth hidden within the glare of the central flare. Sagittarius A star is not a solitary monarch ruling over an empty kingdom. It is the center of a vast, invisible congregation. The data suggests that the central engine is surrounded by a dense swarm of smaller, stellar mass black holes, numbering in the tens of thousands. These are the dark wanderers, the silent remnants of ancient, massive stars that exhausted their nuclear fuel eons ago and collapsed into points of infinite density. For billions of years, they have drifted through the crowded star fields of the galactic bulge, invisible and ignored, but now they are on the move. They are migrating toward the center in a slow, relentless descent, drawn by the same gravitational hunger that anchors the entire Milky Way. This migration is driven by the subtle but powerful process of dynamical friction. As these smaller black holes plow through the dense clouds of gas and the teeming clusters of stars, they transfer a fraction of their orbital energy to the objects they pass. Like a heavy stone sinking through a sea of thick honey, they lose their momentum and begin to spiral inward. This is not a sudden event but a gathering storm, a collective shift in the gravitational architecture of the galaxy. The swarm is beginning to consolidate, creating a region of space so crowded with singularities that the very concept of a stable orbit begins to dissolve. We are witnessing a cosmic consolidation where the individual shadows are merging into a singular, overwhelming darkness. The first signs of this migration do not arrive as light, but as the first gusts of a gravitational gale. Gravitational waves, the ripples in the fabric of spacetime predicted by Albert Einstein over a century ago, are now being detected with a frequency and intensity that challenge our previous understanding of the cosmos. These waves are the messengers of the dark wanderers, the vibrations created as these massive objects dance around one another and eventually collide. As the swarm moves toward the center, the frequency of these mergers increases, sending out pulses of energy that ripple across the light years like the rings from a stone dropped into a still pond. These ripples eventually reach our own solar system, passing through the Earth and the Moon with the silent indifference of a ghost. They are not felt by the human senses, but they are captured by the exquisite precision of our most advanced interferometers. As the wave passes, it physically distorts the distance between the Earth and its moon. The change is infinitesimal, a distance no greater than the width of a single atom, yet its significance is monumental. It is a signal that the very ground we stand on and the celestial bodies we rely upon are being flexed by the movement of invisible monsters thousands of light years away. The structure of reality is being tugged and squeezed by the migration of the swarm, proving that the solar system is not an isolated sanctuary but a participant in a larger, more violent gravitational drama. This distortion marks a fundamental shift in our neighborhood. For most of human history, we have viewed the heavens as a static and unchanging backdrop to our brief lives. We believed the distances between the stars were fixed, and the geometry of our local space was a constant. The data from 2025 shatters this illusion. We now know that the floor of the universe is vibrating. The architectural stability of the Milky Way is being renegotiated as the dark wanderers move toward their final destination. Our solar system is like a small boat on a vast ocean, and we have just felt the first swell of a coming storm. The terrifying possibility revealed by Bravo Hotel 39 is that this migration is accelerating. The sudden intake of matter by Sagittarius A star may be acting as a catalyst, drawing the swarm inward at an unprecedented rate. As these smaller black holes congregate, they create their own local gravitational wells, further complicating the already chaotic environment of the galactic center. They are the architects of a new, more dangerous map where the paths of stars are no longer predictable and the darkness is no longer empty. We find ourselves in a universe where the most significant events are those we cannot see. The dark wanderers do not announce themselves with the brilliance of a supernova or the glow of a nebula. They announce themselves through the subtle warping of space and the silent stretching of atoms. This is the true nature of the storm, a silent, invisible realignment of power that is redrawing the boundaries of the galaxy. As we continue to monitor the pulses from the center, we realize that the heartbeat of 2025 was not just the sound of one monster feeding, but the sound of an entire army of shadows beginning to march. The gravitational waves passing through our bodies at this very moment are the echoes of that march, reminding us that the architecture of our world is far more fragile than we ever dared to believe. The fragility of the cosmic architecture is matched only by the fragility of the theories we use to describe it. For decades, the black hole stood as the ultimate symbol of finality, a celestial tomb from which no light, no information, and no hope could ever emerge. It was the perfect consumer, a one-way door in the fabric of existence. But in the mid-1970s, the theoretical landscape was permanently altered by the insights of Stephen Hawking. He proposed a concept that seemed to contradict the very nature of the singularity, that black holes are not perfectly black. Instead, they emit a faint, ghostly luminescence that leaks into the surrounding void, a phenomenon now known as Hawking radiation. This revelation transformed the black hole from a static graveyard into a dynamic, slowly evaporating entity, suggesting that even the most permanent prisons in the universe are subject to the relentless erosion of time. This ghostly glow arises not from within the event horizon, but from the very edge of the abyss, where the massive world of general relativity meets the jittery, microscopic world of quantum mechanics. In the vacuum of space, reality is never truly empty. It is a boiling sea of quantum fluctuations, where pairs of virtual particles, one of matter and one of antimatter, constantly pop into existence, only to collide and annihilate each other in a fraction of a second. This is the heartbeat of the vacuum, a ceaseless cycle of birth and death that usually goes unnoticed. However, at the event horizon of a black hole, the rules of this cycle are disrupted. If a pair of these virtual particles is born exactly on the threshold, the immense gravitational gradient can tear them apart before they have a chance to annihilate. One particle is pulled down into the maw of the singularity, while the other is flung outward into the universe. To an observer far away, this escaping particle appears as a faint spark of radiation. Because the energy to create these particles must be borrowed from the black hole itself, the act of emission causes the singularity to lose a tiny fraction of its mass. The black hole is, in effect, slowly exhaling its substance back into the void. This process is the bridge between the two great pillars of physics. General relativity describes the smooth, continuous curves of spacetime created by massive objects, while quantum mechanics describes the discrete, pixelated nature of the subatomic world. At the event horizon, these two worlds are forced to reconcile. The black hole, once thought to be an object of pure gravity, is revealed to be a thermodynamic system with a temperature and an entropy. It is a slow-burning ember of light, a radiator that will eventually dissolve the very structure it inhabits. The scale of this evaporation is so vast that it defies the conventional measures of time used by stars and galaxies. For a black hole with the mass of 4 million suns, like Sagittarius A star, the process of leaking its mass into the void is excruciatingly slow. The temperature of its radiation is a billionth of a degree above absolute zero, far colder than the cosmic microwave background that permeates the universe. Currently, the black hole is absorbing more energy from the surrounding space than it is emitting, meaning it is still growing. But in the far distant future, when the last stars have burned out and the universe has expanded into a cold, dark expanse, the balance will shift. The central engine will begin to shrink. Over a period of time spanning 10 to the power of 80, or even 10 to the power of 100 years, the black hole will continue its slow exhalation. As it loses mass, its temperature will begin to rise. The faint, ghostly glow will eventually become a brilliant radiance. In its final moments, the black hole will accelerate its evaporation, transforming from a dark monster into a blinding flash of high-energy gamma rays before vanishing forever. The symbol of death is thus revealed to be a vessel of transformation. The matter that was once crushed into a singularity is returned to the universe as a sea of photons, a slow dissolution that ensures nothing, not even the most profound darkness, is truly eternal. This realization changes the way we view the data from the year 2025. The sudden intake of matter and the resulting flare are not just signs of a predator feeding. They are part of a much longer, much grander cycle of cosmic recycling. The energy being radiated by the accretion disk is the immediate, violent consequence of gravity. But beneath that noise lies the quiet, persistent whisper of Hawking radiation. It is a reminder that the universe possesses a fundamental symmetry, where every action of consumption is eventually met by an act of release. The black hole is not a dead end, but a slow-moving clock, counting down the eons until the fabric of the galaxy is finally returned to the vacuum from which it was woven. As we watch the heart of our galaxy breathe, we are seeing the interplay of these two worlds. We are seeing the massive weight of the singularity pulling on the threads of the cosmic loom, while the tiny, quantum fluctuations at the horizon work to unpick the stitches. The legacy of Hawking is the understanding that the universe does not allow for perfect secrets or absolute endings. The light we see today is a testament to the power of gravity, but the ghostly glow of the horizon is a testament to the persistence of the quantum world. We live in the tension between these two forces. in a galaxy that is both a graveyard and a slow-burning ember, waiting for the trillions of years to pass before the darkness finally gives way to the light. The slow dissolution of the singularity through Hawking radiation presents a profound crisis for the preservation of history, a dilemma known to the watchers of the stars as the information paradox. If a black hole eventually vanishes, what becomes of the stories written into the matter it consumed? In the standard view of the universe, information is the one thing that cannot be truly destroyed. The state of every atom and the trajectory of every photon should, in theory, be traceable back to the beginning of time. Yet, the maw of Sagittarius A star seems to offer a final, absolute erasure. To fall into the dark is to be stripped of all identity, reduced to mere mass, charge, and spin. This conflict suggests a fundamental flaw in our understanding of reality, a place where the two great pillars of human knowledge, the physics of the very large and the physics of the very small, refuse to speak the same language. The data streaming from Bravo Hotel 39 in the year 2025 offers a radical resolution to this mystery. The satellite has begun to capture anomalous modulations within the high-energy flare, subtle flickers in the radiation that do not correspond to the chaotic turbulence of the accretion disk. These signals are not random. They possess a structure that suggests the event horizon is not a void, but a two-dimensional library of staggering complexity. According to the holographic principle, the three-dimensional volume of everything that has ever fallen into the black hole is encoded onto the two-dimensional surface of its horizon. The history of swallowed stars, the chemical composition of pulverized planets, and the very light of ancient eras are etched into the fluctuations of the shadow like the grooves on a silver record. This means the event horizon is a parchment of infinite capacity. As matter approaches the threshold, its information is not lost but is smeared across the surface, preserved in a state of extreme dilation. To an outside observer, nothing ever truly falls in. Instead, the image of the falling object becomes frozen and flattened against the skin of the abyss, adding its data to the collective memory of the singularity. The black hole is thus revealed to be the ultimate archive of the galaxy, a repository where the past is kept in a state of perfect, frozen preservation. Contrast this with the terrifying alternative of total erasure, where the singularity acts as a cosmic shredder, grinding the causality of the universe into a meaningless nothingness. If the signals from Bravo Hotel 39 are what they seem, we are looking at the external hard drive of the Milky Way, a place where every atom of our ancestry is catalogued in the geometry of the dark. However, the strange signals also reveal a terrifying tension. The patterns detected in the year 2025 suggest that the library is under duress. The sheer volume of matter being consumed in this new active phase is causing the encoded data to vibrate with a frequency that challenges our current mathematical models. The equations of general relativity, which demand a smooth and continuous fabric of space, are beginning to buckle under the weight of the information density. We are seeing evidence of a firewall, a region of intense energy at the horizon that should not exist according to the classical laws of physics. It is as if the cosmic loom is being forced to weave too many threads into too small a space, causing the fabric to fray and the logic of the universe to stutter. In this environment, our math becomes a prayer. The variables that once provided a clear window into the mechanics of the cosmos now return values that point toward the impossible. The signals from the galactic center suggest that at the edge of the singularity, the very distinction between matter and information is dissolving. We are witnessing a state of existence where the laws of physics are no longer the masters of the house, but are themselves being rewritten by the pressure of the abyss. The genius of the abyss lies in its ability to hold these contradictions in a state of permanent, violent equilibrium. It is a place where the end of a star is also the beginning of a permanent record, and where the destruction of the physical form is the only way to achieve a mathematical immortality. The philosophical weight of this discovery is immense. If the event horizon is indeed a library, then the light we see today from the galactic center is more than just radiation. It is a broadcast of the galaxy's entire history. The The signals captured by Bravo Hotel 39 are a census of the dead, a ledger of everything the Milky Way has ever been. We are small, fragile observers, looking at a mirror that reflects our own insignificance, yet it also offers a glimpse into a level of reality where nothing is ever truly forgotten. The fear we feel when looking into the dark is the fear of a species that prizes its own continuity, standing before a machine that preserves everything but the self. As the year 2025 progresses, the buckling of our physical laws reminds us that we are still children playing with shadows, trying to read the index of a book whose language we are only just beginning to hear. The darkness is not just breathing, it is speaking, and the signals from the center are the first syllables of a story that spans the entirety of time. The light arriving at the mirrors of the Atacama and the sensors of Bravo Hotel 39 is a ghost of a distant era, a messenger that has spent the last 26,000 years traversing the cold, silent reaches of the interstellar void. To look toward the center of the galaxy is to look deep into the past, peeling back the layers of time with every photon captured. When the radiation we detect today was first ejected from the violent, churning disk of Sagittarius A star, the Earth was locked in the grip of the last great ice age. Massive glaciers, kilometers thick, ground their way across the northern continents, and the level of the oceans sat 100 meters lower than they do today. In that era, human beings were not the masters of the planet, but a fragile species of hunter-gatherers huddled in the limestone caves of Europe and the river valleys of Asia. While the central monster was shredding a star or exhaling a high-energy flare, our ancestors were only just beginning to master the transformative power of fire. They sat around flickering embers, their faces illuminated by the same chemical reactions that power the sun, unaware that a far more terrifying light was beginning its journey toward them from the heart of the sky. They looked up at the Milky Way and saw a river of silver, perhaps weaving myths of gods and spirits to explain the celestial glow, never suspecting that the light they saw was already thousands of years old. There is a profound irony in the fact that the very fires they used for warmth and protection were the first primitive steps on a technological path that would eventually lead to the construction of space telescopes and infrared sensors. This temporal gap illustrates the staggering scale of our insignificance. In the time it took for a single beam of light to cross the distance from the galactic center to our eyes, the entirety of recorded human history has unfolded. Every empire that has ever risen, every war that has ever been fought, and every word that has ever been written occurred while those photons were still in flight. We are a species that lives for a mere heartbeat in the lifespan of a galaxy. Our greatest achievements and our deepest sorrows are compressed into a fraction of the time it takes for the light of our own home to reach us. The universe does not operate on a human schedule. It moves with the slow, tectonic patience of gravity and the relentless, unchanging speed of light. Yet, within this insignificance lies a remarkable resilience. In those 26,000 years, we did not merely survive, we evolved. We moved from sharpening flint to etching silicon. We transitioned from the soot of cave walls to the digital archives of the global network. We developed the mathematics to predict the curvature of space and the engineering to launch golden-winged satellites into the vacuum. The fact that a collection of atoms, forged in the hearts of dying stars and huddled around a cave fire, could eventually build the tools to catch and decode the light of a black hole is the greatest triumph of the human spirit. We have bridged the gap of 26,000 years through the sheer power of our curiosity. The Milky Way is therefore not a static map, but a living history, a delayed broadcast where every layer of depth represents a different chapter of the cosmic story. When we look at the stars of the outer arms, we see them as they were a few hundred years ago. When we look at the central bulge, we see the world as it was when the mammoths still roamed the tundra. Every photon is a messenger from a distant past that has only just arrived to tell its story. The data from 2025 is a report on a crisis that occurred eons before the first city was ever built, a signal from a time when the Earth was a wilderness of ice and shadow. We are the first generation of our species to truly understand that the light of the stars is a form of time travel. This realization forces us to reconsider our place in the cosmos. We are the eyes of the past, the only part of the universe that has developed the ability to look back at its own history and wonder why it exists. The vast distances that once seemed like barriers are now revealed to be the very things that preserve the story of the galaxy. If light traveled instantaneously, the universe would be a chaotic, overwhelming present without a history. Instead, we live in a world of beautiful, structured delays, where the light of the beginning is still reaching us from the furthest edges of the void. As we monitor the heartbeat of 2025, we are not just looking at a distant object, we are witnessing the echoes of our own origins, reaching out across the millennia to remind us that we are part of a narrative that is far larger and older than our brief time under the sun. We are the descendants of the cave dwellers, finally standing at the edge of the light, ready to hear what the darkness has to say. The story of the galaxy does not end with the heartbeat of 2025. That event is merely a single tick of a cosmic clock that will run for eons beyond our comprehension. If we project our gaze forward, beyond the lifespans of civilizations and the stability of the solar system, we witness the inevitable transformation of our celestial home. Currently, the Andromeda Galaxy is a faint smudge of light located 2.5 million light-years away, but it is falling toward us at a velocity of 110 kilometers per second. In approximately 4 billion years, the two great spirals of the local group will begin a slow-motion collision that will redefine the heavens. This is not a violent clashing of solid objects, for the distances between stars are too vast, but a gravitational interweaving. The spiral arms will be torn asunder, flung out into the intergalactic void in long, elegant tails of gas and light, before the two galaxies settle into a single, massive elliptical structure. At the heart of this new, unified galaxy, the two central titans will find each other. Sagittarius A star and the even more massive black hole at the core of Andromeda will begin a final, fatal dance. They will spiral around their common center of mass, their orbits shrinking as they shed energy in the form of massive gravitational waves. This is a shaking of the foundations of the local group, a rhythmic distortion of space that will be felt by every star and every planet in the merged system. As the two event horizons finally touch, they will merge into a single, even more formidable singularity. This event will release more energy in a single second than all the stars in the observable universe combined, a silent explosion of pure gravity that will ripple across the cosmos, announcing the birth of a new, absolute ruler of the dark. Once this new titan is established, the universe enters its long, slow twilight. Over the next 100 trillion years, the fuel for new stars will be exhausted. The vibrant colors of the nebulae will fade into the cold red of dying dwarfs, and eventually, the last fires of the cosmos will go out. The universe will be populated only by the cold embers of white dwarfs, the dense husks of neutron stars, and the black holes that have consumed the remnants of their galaxies. This is the era of the black hole, where the only significant sources of energy are the slow rotation of these dark monsters and the faint, ghostly glow of Hawking radiation. The galaxy we know today as a city of light will have become a graveyard of cold matter, all orbiting a singular, unyielding point of darkness. As the clock moves toward 10 to the power of 100 years, the process of evaporation becomes the dominant force in the universe. The central black hole of the merged galaxy, once the anchor of billions of stars, will begin its final, agonizingly slow dissolution. It will exhale its mass photon by photon, shrinking as the surrounding vacuum grows colder and emptier. The vast structures of the galaxy will have long since dissolved, the stars having been flung into the void by gravitational encounters or swallowed by the dark. The black hole, once a symbol of eternal permanence, will find itself alone in an expanding wasteland of space. It will continue its slow exhalation, the last witness to a universe that has forgotten the meaning of light. Eventually, the black hole will reach its final moments. As its mass dwindles to that of a mountain, then a house, then a single atom, its temperature will skyrocket. In its final second of existence, It will accelerate its radiation until it vanishes in a final, brilliant flash of high-energy gamma rays. This is the final pop of the cosmic bubble. With the disappearance of the last black hole, the universe reaches the state of heat death. The cosmos becomes a cold, silent sea of photons, stretched to infinite wavelengths by the relentless expansion of space. There is no more matter to gather, no more energy to harvest, and no more work to be done. Entropy has reached its maximum state, and the temperature of the entire universe sits at a fraction of a degree above absolute zero. In this uniform, frozen void, the concept of time itself begins to die. Time is defined by change, the movement of a planet, the burning of a star, the decay of an isotope. But in a universe of maximum entropy, nothing ever changes. One moment is indistinguishable from the next. The arrow of time, which has pointed forward since the Big Bang, eventually loses its direction. Chronos, the personification of time, meets his end in the absolute stillness of the vacuum. The great tapestry of the cosmic loom is finally unraveled, leaving behind only the cold, dark vacuum from which everything once emerged. This is the ultimate fate of the story that began with a hiss in a New Jersey field, a return to the silence, where the memory of the stars and the love of the observers are lost in the infinite expanse of the dark. The events of 2025, which feel so momentous to us, are merely a brief flicker in the long, slow descent toward this final peace. We are living in the golden age of the universe, a brief window of light and complexity between two infinities of darkness. As the last structures dissolve into the void, we are left to wonder what remains of the stories we told under the light of our sun. In the end, perhaps the only thing that survives is the fact that for a few billion years, the universe developed eyes to see itself and a mind to mourn its own passing. The sun begins its slow ascent over the jagged silhouette of the Andes, casting long, bruised shadows across the red dust of the Atacama. The intense, crystalline clarity of the night gives way to a soft, peach-colored glow that washes over the white domes of the observatory. Inside, the rhythmic hum of the cooling systems begins to cycle down, the mechanical vigil of the night coming to a close as the stars are drowned out by the scatter of the atmosphere. The monitors, which for hours have displayed the frantic pulsing data from Bravo Hotel 39, now reflect the tired faces of the men and women who have spent their lives decoding the whispers of the void. The year 2025 has left its mark on the ledgers of science, not as a year of doom, but as the year the galaxy became a living, breathing neighbor. The heartbeat of the central engine is no longer a distant theory, it is a recorded fact, a pulse that vibrates through the very foundations of our understanding. This realization brings with it a profound shift in the human psyche. For millennia, we have feared the dark, seeing it as a predatory absence, a place where the light of reason goes to die. But as the sun illuminates the high plateau, it becomes clear that our fear of the galaxy is merely a byproduct of our growing understanding of its scale. To be scared of the black hole is to finally grasp the true magnitude of the forces that govern our existence. It is a sign that we have moved past the childhood of our species, where we believed the universe was a small, comfortable room built for our benefit. We now see the machinery of the cosmos for what it truly is, a vast, indifferent, and terrifyingly beautiful system of creation and destruction. The fear is not a weakness. It is the first step toward a true and lasting reverence for the architecture of reality. The predictions from the National Aeronautics and Space Administration are not warnings of a coming apocalypse, but invitations to witness the grand machinery in motion. We have seen the gas clouds shredded, the flares erupt, and the gravitational waves ripple through our very bones. These events remind us that we are not merely observers perched on a lonely rock, but active participants in a cosmic drama that has been unfolding for 13.8 billion years. The black hole at the center of the Milky Way is the architect of our home, the anchor that holds the spiral arms in place, and the furnace that recycles the matter of ancient stars into the seeds of new ones. Without the violent geometry of the singularity, the stability required for life to emerge on a small blue planet in the outer suburbs of the galaxy might never have existed. We are a brief flash of consciousness in a universe of vast, unthinking power. We are a collection of atoms, carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen that were forged in the hearts of stars and scattered across the void by the same gravitational forces we now seek to measure. We are the only part of the universe that has developed eyes to see the darkness and a mind to wonder why it exists. This is our unique and heavy burden, to be the witnesses of the abyss. When we look into the shadow of Sagittarius A star, we are not looking at something foreign or separate from ourselves. We are looking at the ultimate expression of the laws that brought us into being. The singularity is the place where the cosmic loom pulls the threads of reality into a single, infinite point, and we are the threads that have managed to escape the weave just long enough to tell the story. As the light of the new day fills the observatory, the data from Bravo Hotel 39 is archived, a permanent record of the moment the galaxy spoke to its children. The final message of the year 2025 is one of profound connection. We are woven from the same fabric as the stars and the shadows alike. The gravity that pulls on the gas clouds of the galactic center is the same gravity that keeps our feet planted on the Earth and our moon in its orbit. The light that leaks from the event horizon through the process of Hawking radiation is a reminder that even the most absolute darkness is part of a cycle of return and renewal. We do not fear the black hole because it is an ending. We fear it because it is the ultimate expression of the mystery that lies at the heart of all things. The sun is now fully above the horizon, turning the Atacama into a sea of gold and fire. The scientists step out into the thin, cold air, squinting against the brilliance of the local star. They know that the darkness is still there, just beyond the blue of the sky, breathing and pulsing with the weight of 4 million suns. They know that the journey of the light they captured tonight began when their ancestors were first discovering fire, and that the story will continue long after their own names are forgotten. But in this moment, there is no terror, only a quiet, overwhelming sense of belonging. We are the eyes of the cosmos, and we have seen the truth, that the dark is not our enemy, but the silent partner of the light, and that the mystery of the abyss is the same mystery that beats within every human heart. The hunt that began in 2025 is not a hunt for survival, but a hunt for meaning. And as long as there are stars to watch and shadows to measure, the story of the watchers in the desert will never truly end.